It's a delight to be here again. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the program Flipside. And I'm your host, Daisy Leo Asikidi. I know it's been a while you saw me on this show. Yes, I was on recess, but I'm back now. Today is a very special day. We're talking about an event that's to come up on the 19th of August. So in 10 days' time, this will be a world event, but we need to talk about it now, at least start creating awareness ahead. On the 19th of August 2003, a bomb attack on the Canal Hotel in Baghdad, Iraq, killed about 22 humanitarian aid workers, including the UN Special Representative of the Secretary General for Iraq, Sergio Vera de Malo. So 5 years later, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution designating 19th of August as World Humanitarian Day. So each year, the World Humanitarian Day focuses on a theme. We're bringing together partners from across the humanitarian system to advocate for the survival, the well-being, the dignity of people affected by the crisis, and of course, the safety and security of aid workers. For this year's World Humanitarian Day, campaign shines a light on thousands of volunteers, professionals, crisis-affected people who deliver urgent health care, shelter, food, protection, water, and much more. They're saying that, there's a saying, the theme for this year is focusing on it takes a village. It's a popular saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So similarly, it takes a village to support a person in a humanitarian crisis. With a record high humanitarian needs around the world, this year's World Humanitarian Day builds on this metaphor of collective endeavor to grow global appreciation of humanitarian work whenever and wherever people are in need. There are others who help them too. And so today we're going to focus on some of the issues and talk about the first people who respond when disaster strikes, and also draw the attention of the global community on how they can get involved. So join us today on World Humanitarian Day, special edition dedicated to it, and the theme, It Takes a Village. I have people who are in the field. They've been in the field for years, offering some sort of humanitarian assistance when it comes to crisis. It might not be in the same sphere. They represent two different humanitarian society, but they've been doing this work for a long time. I have Pastor Kenneth Oche with me. He's one of the coordinators at the IDP camp in Edo State, Uogwa. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
And then I have Pastor Evelyn Omige here. She's also from the IDP camp Uogwa. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome.
And this one you see all the time is here when we have anything that relates to charity, humanitarian works, and some parts of ed care. Is the public relations communicator.
Is branch communications officer.
Okay, sorry. Branch communication officer of the ICR.
Of the NRC.
NRC.
Nigerian Red Cross Society.
Oh, okay.
Nigerian Red Cross Society.
How did I even miss that up? Because you're even wearing your crest.
Yes.
Okay, he's representing the Nigerian Red Cross, and his name is Ogenetejiri Owigo. He's a regular person we can easily call on things like this, because these guys, they are always on the ground in one area or the other. Good to have you all here today.
Thank you.
So I would start with you, Tejiri, and we'll just move it down that way. As the world observes World Humanitarian Day, could you provide an overview of the current situation, in the global humanitarian landscape? What's going on at this time? What are the key challenges humanitarian workers or even the world at large is facing that you think we should be looking at now?
Okay, thank you for that question, and thank you for doing this in honor of Humanitarian Day. The truth of the matter is a lot of challenges exist around the world. The most popular ones will be armed conflict that goes on around the country, around the world, in fact. If you're following the news, you should know that there's some tension because of Niger, and of course, Nigeria is somewhere caught up in that mix. So those who live around the border areas will definitely be a little bit apprehensive and all that. So that's a challenge. Russia and Ukraine has been stretched and overflowed. Pockets of conflicts, I can count up to 100 conflicts going on around the world. And the challenge with that is, depending on how warfare goes, infrastructure is always affected. right? Be it roads, be it healthcare. People who ordinarily, besides warfare, were suffering. Their conditions get complicated. So that's one angle of humanitarian needs and interventions that will be necessary, right? So that's on the one hand. Then on the other hand, there's also the challenge of natural disasters. We're just coming from one severe one, COVID-19, right? And the World Health Organization has declared that it's no longer a global health emergency, which is a good thing. But of course, while that's dying down, we have had diphtheria, we're talking about anthrax again. So obviously, this is going to affect what people can eat, the availability to food. There's some talk somewhere about hunger crisis coming on in certain parts of the country right now, right? So that it has dragged on for last year. It's resurfacing again, and so far, and it's even going to spread from the projections we see. And then last year, from 2012, we had a very major flood episode. Last year, we had another bout, and there are talks about pockets of flood, coming up again this year. So I'm giving you a broad spectrum of the needs that people have. I spent some time in Bayelsa last month doing an intervention for flood victims, and the things I saw, it breaks your heart to see people live in certain conditions. You hear their stories, persons who lost their entire livelihood, their houses submerged, people who met a particular woman who was physically challenged, and obviously with her ability, challenges with mobility, had to relocate with the little she could hold in her hand and go stay at a primary healthcare facility that was still under construction. Wasn't even fully constructed. So when you hear things like that, it breaks your heart. And of course, we're not going to talk about sanitary conditions. We're not going to talk about healthcare needs that these individuals have. So you see that when people suffer because of all of these conditions, the things you need to help preserve their dignity, to help them live near normally, quite a lot. And of course, people have to provide those needs.
Yeah, you could do a whole lot. Before we even go further, I want to say I appreciate all of you here for being so brave when the rest of us were afraid. Because it takes a lot to go to a crisis region to offer assistance. It takes a lot to take in strangers to live with you. Not everyone can do it. And so I have to doff my hat for you. So I'm going to go to you now, Pastor Evelyn. I would want you to share a story, maybe an inspiring story that you've experienced, or maybe from your colleague. I know recently there was a story on the news of the camp, and some people came to say some sort of insecurity reasons. They were talking. The stories that there's been so much conspiracy theory and all that, even though you're all doing good work. So maybe people need to understand the relevance of this aid you render. So are there any inspiring stories you could share on how it has made someone's life better?
Yes, thank you so much, Daisy. Since we started this work, talking about those from the insurgency quarter, in fact, when these children came, they could hardly smile. In fact, they were highly traumatized. You would just see somebody running to nowhere, hitting the wall, because of the horrible things
They've
that
seen.
Yes. A child who saw the father slaughtered, who saw the mother raped, who saw a lot of horrible, horrible things. And then trying to give the child a hope. We had many of them. And we actually started by counseling them, loving them, making them feel that they are still wanted, making them feel that they can make life again. In fact, we make them to believe that, have their self-esteem, that they can still become somebody. And actually, that was how we started. Started training them. Some started from nursery, some started from primary, some started from secondary. And as I'm talking to you now, we have 15 of them that are graduating this year.
Wow, nice.
We have that have graduated this year. Then we have others that are about to graduate. We have about 200 of them in various universities. We have one of them already doing a nursing internship with this hospital at Tiroa. We have those 6 nurses have just graduated yesterday.
Wow, nice.
We have 8 of them studying medicine and surgery in 600 level.
Wow.
In fact, so many, and today they are happy. You can see their stories have been rewritten. Someone who was, you know, displaced, no house, no father, no mother, no hope. Today, they have hope. They are becoming somebody in the society. One also graduated as an engineer, chemical engineer. And he is the best in his department.
Interesting.
Yes. In fact, the ones that graduated before, they are coming out with 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. One graduated with first class. That one is doing his youth service as I'm talking to you now in Taraba State. So in fact, I don't just, I'm short of words to really explain what God is doing through this camp in the lives of these children. And so with all this, I think many false stories have been disproved. Whatever anybody has come out to say that this is this, this is this, this is this, the lives of these children have disproved them totally. That what we are doing is genuine, what we are doing is right, what we are doing is giving hope to the hopeless. You know, making people have their complete sense again. Somebody who became senseless because of what he or she has gone through, now having sense of, yes, belonging. I'm alive, I can do something, I can become an engineer, I can become a doctor, I can become a nurse. And they are actually becoming it. So what we are doing is right, and whatever anybody has come to say, please discard it.
Okay.
It's just out of his malicious, yes, it's out of malice,
You know, I totally agree.
and out of hatred, and out of the wickedness of some human beings who have sold themselves to do evil, to be wicked all their lives. So seeing this, anybody who comes out is just, I don't know the word.
Yeah, I do believe that humanitarian assistance can actually make a lot of positive difference. And even the stories of insecurity, you could even hear stories of abuses in some camps. There are a lot of stories that come out from all these camps and even from aid workers. But that's not to say they are not good people there who are doing the real thing. Even in the homes that are supposed to be safe, we still hear stories and all of that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about climate change, sir, Pastor Kenneth. You know, a lot of the issues we focus on in Nigeria are always maybe because of terrorism. There's some insecurity, pockets of insecurity here and there, and so people are displaced. But there are very few focus on fire and some of those other emergencies. It's just very recently we even started caring about flood victims. Before, when there's a flood, you just take them to some primary school, give them gari, put some in the noodles, and that's what we used to do. So it's even recently we started giving a lot of attention to it. So now, in the wake of climate change, it's a real deal in the world now. It's a problem. And some of the natural disasters, good thing we don't have too much of it. We don't have earthquakes, but we can't be too sure. This one that they are pumping sand into the sea in Lagos, you know, there's so many natural disasters, threats or speculations coming. What should you think? What would you suggest? What strategies would you suggest that government should begin to put in place before it happens? You know, we have a responsive mindset. We need to start being, we'll prepare before it happens. Not when it happens, we start acting. So what would you suggest?
If you discover in the developing world, before a disaster happens, people, they are proactive.
Yeah.
With their science, they are able to tell you that so and so and so place, there will be cyclone, there will be this, there will be this. And people are evacuated before it happens. So the government has to be proactive to let's know what our meteorological stations are doing to be able to forecast that so and so and so and so will happen at a particular point in time. That will give us an insight of what to do before it happens.
Word.
That's one. Then two, if you look at, we are talking of climate change. What brought the climate change? If people begin to talk of the ozone layer being depleted and the rest of it. But what happened, if you look at, it is human activities in the world. As we are talking now, gases are being fled in the Niger Delta. There is a place I went for mission work. It is 24 hours, 7 days, 12 months of the year. The fire does not go off. The gas are being flared continually. So, and that goes on to damage the environment, to damage the atmospheric condition. And that brings change. So what do we do? As much as we have these natural resources, it is better we channel them to where it becomes useful to human and not harmful. In those areas, like Utu Jerime, for example, in the Niger Delta, I was there. If you look at their roofs are leaking. Acid rain falls there. The indigenous are becoming blind as a result of this gas flaring. And what are they giving them? Peanuts from the oil exploration companies. And what they do, they come there and take all the resources, and the people are left in penury. And you look at their rivers, they are all polluted. These are all bring climate change that we are talking about. So the government has to do something that will make sure that the resources we are getting are not being, it will not become a cost to us, but rather it will be a blessing to us. So in terms of climate change, there are so many things that we need to do. If you talk of, let's stop this gas flaring. Look at our forests. They are being deforested every now and then. And there is no afforestation, that's replanting.
Of the trees.
Of the trees. And desertification is getting closer and closer and closer. And all this causes the climatic change that we are experiencing, which we call it result of flooding that brings about natural disaster.
Wonderful. Okay. When Pastor Evelyn was talking earlier, she mentioned the trauma some of these children have been exposed to. Teju, I'm going to direct this question to you. Like, how important it is to prioritize the mental state or the mental health of all, not only the people that are being rescued, but even the aid workers, because there are some things I cannot see, even if I'm going to give help.
Okay.
The things you people see on the field, you know, so are there plans? You could even use your organization as an example. How do you what do you do to prioritize the mental health?
That experience she mentioned, I particularly spoke to a young boy in the same camp who shared a similar story with me, so I can corroborate what she said.
Okay.
I think that was in 2015.
Yes.
Exactly. So I did some work with them. Now, one thing we are doing, I'm going to speak from a Red Cross perspective, is we are institutionalizing psychological first aid. Now, starting this August, from 20th to 26th, we are holding a training camp where we are going to train our volunteers, amongst other things, in psychological first aid, right? And what this helps to achieve is we need our volunteers to be able to more readily assist people. Now, one thing you realize is emergency doesn't always affect you physically. It affects you mentally. Like the experience she shared, why a young child may have gone away hurt from a situation, there are fractures to the mind. There are things that it begins to change their worldview, right? And of course, what you call medically psychosomatic issues that can come up, how the mind affects even your body physically, right? What you believe. So we plan to train more volunteers and institutionalize this course for our volunteers. And then another thing we do and we have in our SOP is we brief and debrief our volunteers. So if we're going to send volunteers out, first of all, they have to be trained specific to what they are going to experience, right? And then they get specific briefings, right? I remember, I'm going to refer to Bayelsa a lot because that's my very last mission. One time we had to go to southern Niger for certain activities, and we were first told, if you cannot swim, and you know your mind will not carry, you are permitted to not go for this particular community. So that already, because threat analysis has been done, all of that, so you are briefed and you have made your informed decision as a volunteer. Then of course, coming back from activities, it is also part of the SOP that you debrief your volunteers. And I'm saying this very specifically because we have a lot of NGOs springing up these days that believe that humanitarian work is just what we would call truck and dump. You just assume what people need, go and give them. Yes, food. Oftentimes you can never go wrong with food items. You can often never go wrong with sanitary items. But an experience we had, I'm going to admit this on air with working with the IDP camp, is we assumed that because these persons came from the north, they were all Muslims.
Yes.
Which is not also true. So when you do effective assessment, you'd understand that because they are not Muslims, they would not need things like prayer mat, for example, or kettles. Are you getting? So humanitarian needs need to be specific to the individuals. That's the only way you can actually be meeting a need. A person may be hungry and you assume it's just food. You give the person food. And if the food contains things that the person doesn't eat, maybe for cultural reasons or for health reasons, you see that your assistance will get K-leg. So NGOs that are springing up need to also understand that there is a best practice for humanitarian work. Then persons who are humanitarian minded, I have the money, I want to assist. You need to also be sure that the persons or the organizations you are entrusting with these activities are reputable and know how to do the work. Otherwise, you just buy noodles, instant noodles, and go and spread to people and you think you have done the best you should do. You have tried, but it wasn't the best.
Wonderful. Okay, they're just sharing experiences as well, as much as they are telling us the truth. We need to understand that it takes a lot more than just the material things. If it were just to buy things, I think some of us would claim that we're humanitarian workers already. I mean, we can donate money, which is still part of it, but yeah, sure. I can't go to the field. That's really difficult, but we need these heroes to be there. Nobody plans for natural disasters. Nobody sits down to say, I just pray my entire street will catch fire, all of us will become homeless. Nobody does that. But what happens if you're one of those who becomes unfortunate at that time? Someone is still going to come assist you. And these are the people we're talking about today. We're going to focus on their safety and so many more after the break. We'll go on a quick break. When we return from that break, we will talk some more.
If this were a story, it would start with a hero. Someone with a great destiny who saves the day. This isn't a story. There are no quests, no monsters, no surprise twist at the end. It's real life, a complicated world where ordinary people do the saving. Where heroes are made, not with costumes or magical abilities, but by being human. Stepping up to help, time after time after time, with grit and compassion, without any superpowers at all, because they're not the heroes of some fictional world. They're the real-life heroes of ours. And this World Humanitarian Day, we thank each and every one of them.
People in the Horn of Africa have experienced their longest drought on record. In Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, despite recent rainfall, tens of millions of people have been left confronting crisis levels of acute food insecurity.
Children and pregnant and breastfeeding women facing acute malnutrition.
Families displaced from their homes, community and support networks.
And the millions of livestock and crops decimated by drought, depriving pastoralists of their primary source of livelihood and nutrition.
Conflict, climate change and insecurity are compounding challenges, driving displacement, causing people to flee across borders,
and complicating access to health services and aid.
Thanks to the generosity of donors, 20 million people received life-saving assistance in 2022, and famine was averted.
But the humanitarian emergency is not over. Already weakened communities face yet another year of severe hardship. They need immediate support to survive. and they need long-term solutions to address the root causes of food insecurity and rebuild their lives. With your support, we can help them.
World Humanitarian Day is what we're focusing on today. It takes a village, the theme says. So it's not just one person. It takes a village to raise a child whose parents are still alive, a child who most likely has a roof over its head, and they still say it takes a village. Now imagine a child who lacks most of these things. That village, it has to be tripled. So everyone needs to be involved. I have two humanitarian organizations sit here today. I have the internally displaced persons camp coordinators, some of their coordinators here, and I also have a representative of the Nigerian Red Cross, Oganetediri Ovigo, with me here today. And before we went on the break, you were talking to us, so I'll just go straight to Pastor Evelyn now. World Humanitarian Day aims to honor aid workers, talk about the work people do, and all of that, but a lot of people do not understand the terror that also comes with this duties you render, the insecurity you have to face. It's not every time the displaced persons had to come to Benin. I'm sure there were sometimes you had to go get them from the an environment that is also not safe. So what would you advise, what would you say can be done to create a safer environment for aid workers? Because even the Red Cross, I've seen stories of maybe they went to give aid, they end up killing themselves, and they are not even the enemies. So what can we do to ensure, to create a safer environment for humanitarian workers and also ensure their protection?
Yes, thank you so much, Daisy. Actually, someone who has given his or herself to serve humanity needs protection, because he is the focal person. People are in need. For example, somebody is drowning. You want to save the person. You need help, especially using the context of our country now. You know, for you to travel from here to Ekboma, you know what that means.
Yeah.
Talking of to Abuja, to this, to all those terrain. Aid workers need security assistance. Yes, because it's very, very important they are protected. Because if thousands of people are in need, and then here comes 10 people who are aid workers, volunteers, who want to help, give assistance, and then if the 10 are killed, I assure you we're going to have millions of people with need. But if the 10 are protected and they go actually help these thousands of people, help them with their mind, help them to come out of trauma, make them have focus, give them skills like women and all, try to help them, you will discover that you've saved
a lot more.
Yes, a lot of people. So most importantly, aid workers, they need the support of security agents. Because going to where they are shooting, anyway, it's a risky work. Before we went into it, we know this is what is going to happen. But at least the security agents should try their best to aid workers.
Okay, your own organization.
I want to add something, because we work in a slightly different context. We may not necessarily work with so much armed protection. However, we believe that help is owned by the community. If your community, for example, is in need and I come to help you, I think you should help me help you. That's the principle. So imagine a situation where aid workers come to your community and now need protection from you that they want to help. Wow. It becomes a bad thing. And that is something that we know very well. I'll give you examples. You go to assist maybe communities with livelihood support. And livelihood support can be in two ways. In some instances, you give them actual materials, food, toiletries, and all that. In some other contexts, you can decide to monetize it, right? Now, aid by humanitarian principles should go to the most vulnerable people. So I cannot see you because you are my guy, I add you to a beneficiary list. Whereas you will be taking the slot or the position of a person who truly needs that assistance. So because you are not on that list, you get offended and you go and mobilize your people to come and protest or fight or threaten the aid workers. It's a Nigerian approach. So that's something that we see all the time, because when aid workers go to do, we usually go to do what you call a needs assessment, to know who are the people affected, how many are they, what do they need, how bad is the damage. So we know what is possible, especially when you want to approach you and say, there's a need in this place, help us with this so we can go and help them. So once you have done your needs assessment, you should know the people who need those things. And then you are going to help them. And people who don't need it, instead of appreciating, you say, oh, how can we help? Thank you for coming to help this old woman. Thank you for helping me help. They are now looking for waiting in my share. How is come and settle me? And that becomes a problem. Because oftentimes, when the person has donated 2 naira, for example, to you, and you have told the person you are going to use 1 naira for this, 1 naira for that, it becomes difficult now to say, let me change this 2 naira for this other one, because that will amount to fraud. So how do you, as an aid organization, meet all of these peripheral needs, so to speak? It's a challenge that we face in the field. So it's important that host communities, beneficiary communities, realize that these aid workers are there to help people in your community. The same people that you will see on the street, the same people you will see in the market, we are there to help them. And if you truly care about them, you should provide that enabling environment for the aid workers to provide their assistance. That way, you even can help and support those aid workers to do more. For example, the aid worker comes and they not come with boat, and you have a boat in your compound. You can provide, I volunteer my boat, so you can get to these hard to reach areas. But some persons say, come and rent it, you go pay me, and it's a problem. So these are realities that I think communities can help, so that we can have community-led solutions. Okay.
Which was actually bringing me to the involvement of communities to rendering aid to people. Are there programs your camp does to involve the community so that they don't feel left out, like, oh, these people just came, invaded our space? Because Nigerians, we have that mindset a whole lot. There are so many, they are going to reproduce before you blink. We will no longer own this village and all that. So are there programs, are there things that you do to make sure that there's community involvement?
Like in our camp there, we thank God. If you look at, the school that we're operating is free. And all the communities around, Zito, Ogwa, Iguadolo, Okun, Igbeya, all those communities around, their children come to that school free of charge. It's our social responsibility to the host community. And apart from this, almost annually, the camp coordinator, if there are supplies, there are things that he sends to the community. Okay. In order, a kind of pacifying them or acknowledging, appreciating them for, those also have needs. For having us in their community, and in order for us to live in peace with them too. Okay. So these are the things we do. Okay. I do know your camp render, and some other camps give education, shelter, food to their the host community. No, not the community now. The victims, that they're survivors. I don't call them victims anymore. But when they are done schooling, you mentioned some stories of they graduated now. Yes. Does government even recognize these people? Maybe if they do very well, we have some slots as regards job. Is there any plan? Are you aware of any plan by governments to
assist those who are able to get a skill or get an education in terms of jobs? Any of you could answer the question.
As for now, maybe in the near future, for now, none. But maybe in the near future, well, maybe our government comes and goes. Trust, maybe, something like that.
All right. We have a few pictures that came from the Red Cross, and we want to understand what they stand for, what they signify. So we're going to be displaying those pictures on the screen as they come. Okay, you all pause, explain what they mean, and so that when we see those signs, we'll know what exactly you're talking about.
Okay,
so I think we'll start with this.
This is a bit of situation that we're trying to address right now in the country. You see, on the left you have the Red Cross emblem, right? And on the right you have the Star of Life, what some persons will call the paramedic star. Obviously, the paramedic star is the ideal thing for emergency response services like ambulance services, but if you go around Benin City, Edo State, Nigeria, everybody paints the ambulance with the Red Cross. And a lot of people do not realize that there is actually a law prohibiting it. Right? The ideal thing is if you are not of the Red Cross or you don't have the authority of the Red Cross and of course the Ministry of Defense, which is what the law says, you should not be using the Red Cross emblem, because the reality is with the work that we do, perception is very important. Right? So when a vehicle, for example, is moving as Red Cross, there are rules and regulations that follow that vehicle. There are things we cannot do. But obviously, all of these private hospitals and all that do not know those rules and do not operate by the same rules. So that produces some conflict. So this picture here is from a flood operation. So notice that beyond there is just the open water body, and of course, just that staircase is the only access into a community.
What?
That staircase you see there is the only access into the community.
People live inside this water?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, you see structures, and those structures are just their docking stations. So this is relief operations that we're doing, and these of course are the actual emblems of humanity that symbolizes humanitarian assistance from the Red Cross. We have the Red Cross, the Red Crystal, and the Red Crescent and the Red Crystal. So these are emblems of humanity that obviously are used by the Red Cross movement as its identifiers.
But that Red Crescent now looks like some, if I see that for my layman, I'm just thinking some kind of Muslim sign.
Okay, so actually there are no religious connotations to anyone. However, at the point where a country becomes has its national society, just like we have the Nigerian Red Cross, you must adopt one of these as your identifier. Just the same way we have the Nigerian Red Cross using the cross. Some countries adopt the crystal and some countries adopt the crescent.
Okay.
So these are all three of them, and as you just pointed out, they are free of any religious, political, or otherwise ideology. So they're just as they are, no religious connotations to it. Then this is, as I was talking about earlier, imitations and things that can cause identity crisis for us. We have two categories of abuse. One of them is by persons who should use, and they are using it wrongly. For example, Red Cross cotton wool. On what basis would there be a Red Cross cotton wool?
Yeah.
Next to no reason. So when you use the emblem in a context that should, because there are humanitarian issues, when you use the emblem and you misrepresent the organization, you create a perception confusion. Then when you create like maybe a hospital logo with something that particularly does not represent the organization, it's imitating it sort of. So you create, because my hospital name is Thomas Medical Center, for example, I want to write the T and I write it in such a way that it looks like a Red Cross. It becomes a problem.
Okay.
So the law specifies the measurements for what will be a Red Cross emblem globally. I'm not just talking about Nigeria. And Nigeria is a signatory to the Geneva Conventions Act. Nigeria is also a signatory to all of these rules. They are domiciled in the country, and these things are specified. So I think this is a good opportunity to make an appeal to hospital owners also to government, particularly the Ministry of Health, that these are issues that need to be looked into, such that when maybe a health facility registers to say, I want to open, you ask also, what is your logo going to be? It should not be anything that imitates or looks like the Red Cross. That's on the one hand. Then on the other hand, when they want to brand their ambulances, it should not also be the Red Cross. The paramedic star is what it should carry. And of course, if we have a fully functional emergency response service as it should be, that is where some of these corrections should come from. But it is what it is.
And yes, I've learned something new today. The Red Cross, the Red Crescent, the Red Diamond.
It's the Red Crystal.
Crystal.
I forgive you.
Dear God, this class I'm going to today, I have to pass. Okay, so we're actually talking about It Takes a Village on World Humanitarian Day, and we've gotten to the concluding part of the show, where I'm going to give each of my guests an opportunity to say something about this year's celebration. We still have 10 days to the main event, so are there things you would want people to do to mark this day, to celebrate? Are you having any activity you want the general public to come for? The Red Cross, I know you already have a training in August. Is it free of charge? Can I come with myself, my children? Is there an age limit? And all of this. So I'll start with you, Pastor Kenneth. We just run through your last words on the show today.
Well, it's very important that such a humanitarian perception should be exhibited. For us at the camp there, we might, between now and that time, I decide to put up something that we commemorate that same day. But for now, we are trusting God for something.
Oh, good. Okay, Pastor Evelyn.
For me, I want, just like the theme of this year's celebration, it takes a whole village.
Yeah.
Yes. So let everybody collaborate to make sure that the needy are helped. The needy are cared for. You see somebody in need, please try. Everyone, if you're not in need, be a volunteer to those in need. Especially at this point in time, that the world has chosen to say, let's celebrate Humanitarian Day. Please, whatever you can do. You see children are hungry, children are on the street, people are in need. Whatever you can do, please do it. You'll be fulfilled when you do it, especially at this point in time. And I also call on you to come support our center. Support our center. We have almost 200 children at the university. Please, you can come support a child, support two, pay their school fees. And also we need food. World Humanitarian Day, please remember. Children are there, and we are the volunteers, so we are appealing to you, come support us in any way you can. Nothing is too small to give there, and nothing is too big to give. And when you do that, we who are working as the volunteers, we are lifted, we are happy, and you made our day. Thank you once again. God bless you.
Thank you. All right.
I wish I can say it like she did.
Exactly.
So let me start off by appreciating all those who support the work that we do. Particularly, I want to thank Edu Sema. They have supported the ongoing, the soon-to-happen camp that we have planned with some food items. I was notified. I also want to thank Omonoba. He has always supported our camp. Yes, we cannot thank him enough, in fact. And I'm sure he would also get his support this year. Basically, everyone who supports the work that we do, we need to appreciate you. Our volunteers, they are our strength. We cannot do a lot of things if we don't have the persons to do it. So I also want to take our time to appreciate volunteers who continue to volunteer their time and their skill. Of course, that's also to say that we need more volunteers. We are in constant need of volunteers, and it's very, very easy to volunteer with the Red Cross. Our social media pages, Nigerian Red Cross Society, Edo State Branch, is there. Send a message and we'll walk you through all of the processes for volunteering. Our camp is coming. We are training for almost free, right? Certified trainings. All of that are available. All of that information is available on our social media page. You can also reach out, and of course, we're always glad to have people because people do the work. And thank you for all those who support us.
Thank you. All right. It's always good to have these people here talk about what they do. We'll just share a quick, before we leave here, a few facts and figures by the United Nations. They said in 2021, 468 workers were attacked, 140 killed, 203 wounded, and 117 kidnapped. What did they do? They didn't do anything. Of the 8 workers who died, 98% were national staff and 2% were international expatriate staff. So we killed our own people. More than half, 53%, were staff of the national NGOs. Most of the violence took place in South Sudan, Afghanistan, and Syria. Casualties are expected to rise significantly in 2022 into 2023 due to the war in Ukraine, where rocket attacks, shelling threaten civilians and aid providers equally. Now, in 2021, humanitarian needs overview estimated that 20.7 million, which is about 67% of the population, people, yes, will need humanitarian assistance. 20.7 million people. 12.1 million of those people are estimated to be in acute need. We have places like Yemen being the country with the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. So if we're talking about 20.7 million people in need in 2021, how many million people do you think we would have by the end of 2023, knowing fully well that there are even more insecurity issues, security crises? There are about 8 countries in Africa now where there's a coup, people are dying, and then we'll now combine that with natural disasters. So people are in constant need of help, from the mental to the physical to the educational, even spiritual, because we're quite religious in different parts, except for the West. But from the Middle East to Africa, we are religious people, so we need help. And everyone who's offered assistance to anyone to help them, especially for free, today we want to say we respect you. We thank you for standing when the rest of us ran away. We thank you for constantly staying in front and risking yourself to help others. If you people say no, who will do it? So thank you on behalf of my team. We would be here again next week with a different topic on Flipside. And maybe on World Charity Day, we'll talk a little bit more on things like this. Bye for now.